traps now have an idle sound to them. And the biggest offender, Maestro, his cameras or Evil Eyes can now be opened with EMPs and shock drones of Twitches. And as we've seen in Challenger League, we've seen Twitch over Ashe a heck of a lot more. It's now Zofia Twitch a lot, way more than I've seen Ashe and Zofia as we're used to, just simply because of that change. But
yeah,
Maestro
that's a big
Banso,
change.
heck me.
Yeah, there's still a good chance that we'll see Twitch as well, even though you don't have that hard counter for Maestro. She's still the F2. Everyone knows it's an incredible weapon. A lot of teams tend to have started putting their fragger on Twitch instead of Ashe.
All right, Fish, what are you doing, Fish?
He's gonna. Yeah, he's gonna switch it. There you go. Okay. Yeah, there's no way. I mean, Caviar is still. He's gonna switch it again. Yeah.
He's such a troll.
There we go.
All right, so I've actually seen a lineup like this on defense before, where it's trap heavy lineup, and a lot of it was played heavily into Master, where they had to deploy. They had the wall open up on Trophy, or sorry, they had the wall open up from Statue into Master and a deployable shields. They had the Frost, they had the Capcan. It was very bizarre, and I'm not sure exactly that's what they're going to be doing, but typically the Frost pick, Capcan pick was met with aggression in Master. I'm curious to see if that'll be played here. Doesn't look like it though, so ignore everything I am saying.
One of the reasons we don't normally see Capcan picked is not necessarily because his gadget isn't good or anything like that. It's just that
Oh, it is.
Well, it's every now and again you can catch someone off guard, but one of the main things is that there's just always a better choice of gadget, because the only thing that Capcan's traps do is stack damage. Compare that to something where you can gather information like a Legion. And Legion also prevents people from sprinting, and he prevents people from planting the defuser until they take the Legion mines out. So they're usually just much better options in place of a Capcan, is why we don't normally see him, but his weapon is still pretty good. So potentially he might be able to get some frags here as well.
Well, we see the C4 already used and him taking quite a bit of damage, so now it's a fish out of water for the time being as he'll look to get back to site. All he has is his gun now, and the rest of his traps that are already placed, so not a lot of utility left on Capcan. As you mentioned, he's pretty much just a damage check at this point. And Stunna is playing pretty aggressively inside of Master, which I'm glad he is, because it makes me seem like less of an idiot, so that's always appreciated. He'll take a little bit of fire from both sides, but somehow escapes with his life. And it'll be breezy to open things up with a kill onto Sweater. Sipping there on the refrag, but Fish also there to bring it within reason for his team. 4v3 advantage right now for the defense. 2 members very low so far, and, well, I think that 3 members now down. That'll be Anthony on his back from the Frost trap, actually, as Murphin made his way in and hit a Capcan trap himself. Tyler will pick up both of those kills, and it'll be all up to OJ. So the trap operator is doing a heck of a lot of damage so far. Not a lot of breathing room right now for OJ. The defenders do not seem to really have a bead on where he is at the moment, and are pretty determined to just wait this one out. With how much time is remaining, though, this is still, I wouldn't say within reason, but possible.
Yeah, the element of surprise is the biggest thing that can aid an attacker in these situations. He gets one headshot, but doesn't land the second one. Tyler takes him out and prevents any sort of clutch from happening, and Ocean Creatures will take the first round on their defense with a very trap-heavy setup.
And the traps worked. That was
the Frost trap. Yeah, I didn't.
It's so demoralizing when you're not only in a Frost trap, but to see your friend hit a Capcan trap at the same time, and then you both die to that same operator. That was, oh man. I mean, it worked, and I mean, largely that defense worked simply because Sinister just completely played into that. I mean, if Sinister were focused on Master, they would have droned it out a heck of a lot better, but no, they pushed from the west side from Aviator, and that actually is what ended up biting them in the butt mostly, because they didn't have time to drone out Master. Regardless, though, 1-0 up for Ocean Creatures now, and that looked pretty solid. But we're going to Kitchen now. You talked about it. First floor sites, really heavily debated. Are they good? Are they not? Villa pretty unexplored still. We're going to see how effective it can be right now.
Yeah, we will, and I'm interested to see what sort of setup they'll be using too. So they have 2 roamers, and last time Fish played as a roamer as soon as he put down his Captain traps. So they have the potential for 3 roamers here. Let's take a look at their setup and see if there's anything different that they're doing. It seems everything is pretty standard so far in terms of their reinforcements. No extra rotation holes created in any capacity. Stunna might end up playing downstairs, it looks like. But yeah, overall, it doesn't seem like they decide to pull anything new out of their hats here, and they're just going for a pretty typical kitchen setup. And I'm not exactly sure how well that'll work, because this sort of standard setup is the setup that brings kitchen to a lower win rate than the upper 2 bomb sites. So I think they need to do something to catch Sinister off guard if Ocean Creatures are to win this defense.
Oh, for sure. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. Villa, just with how unexplored it is, there is still at any given opportunity could be an option where teams just kind of figure it out how to approach certain sites like this. And it would seem that they're going to stick with this very roam-friendly map and suit that with roamers, where they have Captain put his traps and then start roaming. They'll have Vigil, have Jaeger, and it's pretty much breezy locking things down. And despite how roam friendly it is and how large the map is, it's still fairly easy to get back to the site when you need to. So I do like this approach from Ocean Creatures. I'm curious to see how it'll play out. And if you land your shots like that, well, you're just going to completely smash this matchup.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of second floor control for the defenders here, as Tyler is up here on top of that, and I think I saw Wrath up there as well. So they're definitely trying to deny that space. Sweater does get 1 kill onto Stunna Boy. However, that doesn't give them too much map control here, just sort of opens up a couple of sight lines. And we'll see what he can do beyond that. The vertical play is coming into question again. Fish takes out Rudy with a nice headshot, and now Sippin is trying to find the refrag. Will he be able to do it? Yep, he will. Brings us down to 3-3, and things are pretty even so far, but again, the second floor control is really huge, and now the attackers have it, so they can rain death down from above.
Yeah, rain death from above works if there's a ton of anchors, but unfortunate to Sinister, that is not really the plan right now for Ocean Creatures, and they still have quite a few people roaming and off-site, so well, they have 1 person off-site for the time being. Rather at any point can rotate out. Still, it's not exactly clear for them to go. They're not really so sure as to both the location of Ocean Creatures, but also how they wish to approach that. C4 will miss the mark just barely onto Sweater, but a heck of a lot of damage, and he'll only need to be tickled by that SMG-11. He sure enough will. And there'll be 2 remaining members of Sinister. This is a stop right now from Ocean Creatures. They've handled these first 2 sites as well as anybody has on Villa so far this season.
Yeah, and I'm also really sort of wondering what Sinister's head's at right now, because it just doesn't seem like they've been very coordinated with each other. There was I think there was 2 refrags overall in these first 2 rounds in general. That's absolutely not what you want as an attacker. As we see on the scoreboard, Sippin is the only one who's really getting frags for his team. Of course, frags are not the only way to contribute, but that also means that they're just, again, not really getting refrags. They're not holding crossfires. It's just Sippin sometimes taking one-on-one engagements and winning because his aim is great. But that means the strategy isn't there, and honestly, Ocean Creatures are just taking advantage of that, and they're taking advantage of that really well. They're playing this roam-heavy style, which you honestly need more than 1 person to challenge in order to break it open.
I'm a big fan of how they've approached this so far, but as always, when you go 2-0 to open it as defenders, third sight is pretty much always a problem for most teams. So very rarely do we see a 3-0 coming out from defenders, just simply because 3 viable bomb sites and 3 perfectly executed defenses is not all too common, especially at a high level, especially at playoffs. So I'm curious to see how they approach it. However, and as we talked about it, this is a second floor site and most teams' first site. So still a lot of conversation to be had, and definitely if there's going to be any map, a third site you can win on in a row, this Villa would be the map to do it. No Mira makes this site pretty interesting. It shakes things up, certainly, but not to the point where defenders are all too comfortable because of study. And when you give up study and how easy it is to give up study, it really is difficult for defenders. However, going back to that Maverick ban, big reason why we saw it is right here. If that Maverick was still available, I guarantee Sinister would take him and push him to study, and all of a sudden you have every open angle onto site that you would possibly need. Instead, Maverick banned, so we're seeing the push from Master come out.
And a Maverick ban also makes it so that impact tricking is way more prominent. So we already see teams generally pick Habana on this map, even though you would really love to open 2 full-sized doorways with Thermite. You just can't manage to get it with the impact trick. Sweater gets one, Sweater gets a second. 2 headshots right in a row. He's starting to show up. But again, it's a solo play. He solo peeked around the corner and got 2 kills. Doesn't really necessarily show good for the teamwork, but I guess they might not need teamwork as Sweater gets a 3rd kill. Stunna Boy waiting on the stairs, seeing if he decides to cross. And he might be able to come up behind him if anything happens here, but Sweater's on a roll, so challenging him might not be the best idea. And a Claymore to watch his back too. This is a pretty tough situation, and Tyler goes down. Sweater gets Stunna as well.
What are you doing, OJ?
Man, that was quite a round. So just
selfish.
Tons of kills, yeah.
OJ is selfish to fire on the enemy team when your guy is on a roll right there. Just unbelievable. You take the L, that you take the death so your buddy can get an ace, always. You don't secure the round win. That's not how it goes. Big
Again,
stats, Azaraki. Big stats.
Yeah. 5-5-0-0-0. And the other team's got 5-4-3-2-1-0. Wait. No, there was one. That's 6 numbers. That's 6 numbers right there. One of those was missing.
Doesn't work like that.
As I was about to say, they won that round, Sinister did, but it, again, wasn't really off of any deep strategy. They weren't necessarily winning the round because of some fantastic droning and callouts and crossfires. They didn't really even have to use utility. It was just Sweater peeking around a corner, getting headshot after headshot after headshot, and just carrying his team to victory on that one. That's not something that you can really rely on, especially in a game like Siege, and as time goes on, strategy becomes more and more important for Siege as teams learn how to play every single site there is. So maybe that's the kind of momentum that they'll need to start working together as a team, because teamwork and communication is often a story of how good is the team feeling mentally. And I have to imagine that a round like that makes them feel real good.
Yeah. And for those first 2 rounds, a lot of the success that Ocean Creatures were having were largely in part due to Sinister's mistakes. For instance, not pushing in a Master or not identifying where exactly Fish was on Capcan earlier on. And a lot droning. Droning is an attacker's best utility, and if you don't drone well, very rarely do you see the team with less information win rounds. So you just got to do a better. You just simply got to do a better job as far as your pre-placed drones during prep phase, or you're just droning throughout the phase. And we're seeing it again here from Sinister. They're choosing to push from Aviator, and we saw how much utility was devoted to that Master side. Actually picked up by Tyler and replaced for this exact push. So Sinister's predictability might come back to haunt them here.
It seems like it does, and Master Bedroom is just such a strong position as well. When you're attacking from this 90 hallway section, there are 2 doors that you can potentially go through to get to site, and they're both on the same side of the map, but Sweater doesn't seem to care. He doesn't need other people holding his angles. He can just get headshot after headshot. So he'll open up a soft wall and give himself a little bit more room to frag out. And we'll see if anyone challenges the angle, and it seems like Stunna Boy is going to, and Sweater is on fire right now. We'll see if anyone can stop this man as they just keep going. And on top of that, it gave the rest of the attackers time to rotate around toward Master Bedroom, and Smurfin with the drop shots going to pick up Wrath. And now Sippin will get a headshot onto Breezy. Now we're in a 5v1 as Tyler needs to clutch it out for the rest of his team, but two members of Sinister are firing off on all cylinders. Sippin's one of them, and he shuts down Tyler immediately.
I don't know if you could actually drink sweaters, but right now it's the Sippin' on Sweater show, and it's been a slaughter since the third round. They have just taken and I don't know if it's ocean creatures peaking when they shouldn't, which is in large, it happens, but specifically just keep winning every single gunfight, and that's it. There's nothing to really dissect. I mean, you brought it up before. It wasn't so much, oh yeah, this strategy, bang bang, let's execute. It's like, you're dead. I just landed my shots better than you. So and you got to give credit, obviously, when you're on a tear like this. That isn't just pure luck. Their droning has gotten significantly better. They're not so surprised. So a lot of those first two rounds, as I mentioned before, Fish had a lot of kills just when he probably shouldn't have. He just randomly peeked something and he got a headshot, or one or two more. And now we're not seeing that happen whatsoever. We're seeing very diligent droning, and it's leading to a large portion of this success so far. I'm not certain I'm too big a fan of the lineup again from Ocean Creatures. I really liked it the first round, where it was cheeky trap operators, let's catch them off guard, okay. But you keep spamming the frost, and it's only going to get less effective, because the more you're looking out for it, the less you're going to get hit by it. It's not like it's not like a goo mine where you can be, oh, I didn't see it. It's like, oh yeah, that is blatantly a frost trap. I'm going to sidestep it now or shoot it. And it's just, I don't know. I'm not too big a fan of what Ocean Creatures have done these past two rounds and continuing into this one.
And especially on a map like Villa, where, again, every single bit of the floor, aside from staircases, is destructible between the first and second floors. So even if you manage to place a frost trap in a location where the attackers can't possibly get a different angle to shoot at it, and if they decide to vault over and immediately look down and shoot at it, one of your team can take them out while they're doing that. You could just go down to the first floor and shoot up through it. Like, there's so many ways that Sinister can potentially counter this frost pick that, again, like Manpants mentioned, the fact that it's been used for 5 rounds in a row means that there's just no chance of Sinister getting caught off guard by it. They're going to drone it out every single time. So we'll see what Sinister can do with their attack this time around. It seems like they're already going to focus on opening up as many angles as possible. And it seems like that momentum that they got after those 2 huge individual play rounds have made them start to slow down and start working as a team a little bit more as they set up master bedroom angles. I think they have one person trying to go around to the room right outside of Trophy. And they're also playing from 90 hallway, so just all sorts of angles being held, and that's exactly the kind of attacker play that I like to see.
Right, and they fully understand where Wrath is at the moment, and it's just a matter of displacing him. There's a lot of fire coming on to Sinister here, but again, you're at these positions that you've been at before, and it's just, at the best, you're just hoping to win your gunfights, but as Sinister have shown lately, they're not losing them. So this strategy can only work for so long. We see Sinister already in the site. Tyler tries to take advantage with the wide swing, but Sippin and Smurfin went there for the refrag. Fish executes Sweater, but Smurfin again there for the refrag, and it's all up to Stunna. However, you do have Rudy on his back. Smurfin, though, continue to tear apart the rest of Ocean Creatures, and I want to mention a point real quick where every single map is defender-sided, at least according to statistics. Statistically, every single map is in favor of defenders. And a large reason why attacking is so difficult in Siege is because you have 45 seconds to find out where the bomb is and what kind of... and first of all, keep your drone alive, but also try to figure out in that 45 seconds what kind of defense they have going on. And then as the game progresses, you have to figure out, this is the best strategy for the defense we're seeing, yada, yada, yada. My point is, you have to spend so much time or just have really good drone work to dissect the defense, absorb it, and execute off that. Defenders, they don't have to have any of that. They just simply need to hear a gunshot and like, oh, they're pushing from here and react that way. Defenders have the defensive setup, and all they need to do is execute. There's far less actual, how do I put this? There's far less complications for defense, I guess is the way to put it. To the point where, like I said, all they have to do, quote unquote, is execute. Whereas attackers need to dissect, figure out a plan, and then execute. So, long story short, throwing the same exact plan at a team like Sinister 3 times in a row, the first time it worked. Then Sinister was like, okay, this is how you do that. They did it the second time, and then why would you even consider doing it a third time? Have a different strategy. You're the defenders. You set the tone. If you give them the information immediately that you're doing said strategy, you eliminated like half of what makes offense difficult. You made it so easy for any IGL to be like, hey guys, remember what we did literally the last round? Let's do that again, because, you know, it worked. So we're going to Kitchen again, to no one's surprise, it should be, and we'll have to see how this worked out well for Ocean the first time. However, like I said, that fear of repetition could come back to haunt them.
And I think at this point, 3 rounds in a row for Sinister, we've sort of hit the critical mass point. So Sinister, they got a couple of rounds with their individual play, and we saw last round that their teamwork has just shot directly up. Their mindset's been doing better, they're warmed up, Sippin's gotten a first kill on Debreezy. But yeah, they're forcing defenders out of their defensive positions, and someone is always on the rotate ready to cut him off. Rudy gets 1 kill with a frag grenade. Sweater and Rudy, they just immediately push in and flush out the entire site. And that's what I'm talking about, the critical mass. Sinister are working together, they're flushing defenders out while someone else is holding the angle, ready to kill whoever rotates around. And on top of that, the other portion of this critical mass thing that I'm talking about is Ocean Creatures. As soon as they started losing a couple rounds in a row, they started getting scared to play the way that won them the first few rounds. And I'm not talking about strategy, because Manpants made a really good point about their strategy being the same every single time. Even after they started losing, they played the same strategy. But the problem is that they're playing it so different, or one of the problems is that they're playing it so differently. The first 2 rounds were in their favor because they were being this really aggressive, roam-heavy style, and they were taking fights unexpectedly. And now they're just kind of sitting back on site, holding angles, getting droned out, and they're not really helping each other.
Yeah, that was going to the next point where you just won 4 attack rounds on Villa of all maps. Villa is the most skewed to defenders of any map, and which is why it is banned so often by so many teams. I mentioned how much I love that CCS. We see so many teams try and understand and execute off Villa. But Villa has something like a ridiculous, like 63.8 or something like that percentage in favor of defenders. And you just won 4 attack rounds. I really can't think in any microcosm that this is going to go even the way of Ocean Creatures. It is what Sinister just did. Or I'm sorry, what Ocean Creatures just did, I can't see Sinister repeating, where if they have a strategy and it failed them, that they're just going to do it again. I don't see that in the cards, especially simply because this is Sinister's pick for their map. Sinister chose to come here, so I have to imagine they have more than one defensive strategy per site.
Yeah, they have to, especially considering that they're a team that's been around for quite a while. They've practiced on a lot of other maps for quite a while as well, so in recent times, since Villa came out, they can actually dedicate more of their time to practicing Villa and finding out setups for Villa. And so I'm excited to see what they can bring on this defense. Already they've got a couple of roamers playing around, and Sweater gets the first pick again. Headshot after headshot. I'm really interested to see what Sweater's headshot percentage is after this match, because it would be pretty insane. This guy has been finding heads all night long. And speaking of, quick shoutouts to siege.gg for so many different amazing stats that we use in the day-to-day, as well as each individual player gets tracked and we have stats for them, so it's always really helpful to have those sorts of community sites.
BGG is an okay site. Filled with okay guys. Check it out if you haven't though. Regardless though, yeah, I mean it's a sweater by the fire right now. He says he's feeling as cozy as he possibly can be. That was a beautiful camera angle for that, by the way. That was very cinematic, what we just got. Wonderful C4 toss. Breezy manages to refrag one for his team, but a lot of health gone right now for the Thatcher. And
a lot of time gone, too.
Yeah, a lot of time gone and a full health team on the defense with the numbers advantage. Breezy and Anthony, oh, there is a trade. I'm sorry. I thought they traded each other, but no. Anthony manages to refrag. Tyler is so very low. He has to go through a smoke and a yokai as well. It's going to be one hell of an uphill battle. We do see those toxic babes come out, slightly missing the mark. Some damage flies in from Rudy, but he'll ultimately back off in the end. He switches to that main gun. Frag comes out. A well-placed frag could do it, but no, he didn't cook it long enough. It sails right past him into Master. I don't know where Tyler was looking, but he gets shot down by Rudy. And it'll be Smurfing to peek and Stunner to go down. It'll be Sinister Academy to take their first round on defense.
It's one thing that struck me really strange is that every single person from Ocean Creatures decided to push from the 90 hallway side of the map, from Aviation and Games Room. And then you just, again, you fall into this sort of trap where you only have 2 doorways that you can potentially push through in order to get onto the sites. And both of those doorways are facing the same direction, so it's almost impossible to set up a crossfire when you are forcing yourselves to be pushed in this sort of position. And so I gotta think that they definitely have to change something up about their attack, like put more emphasis on multiple angles. We talked about Sinister and how they sort of failed at playing Master Bedroom early on, but they managed to fix that, and hopefully we can see Ocean Creatures attack fix those sorts of issues as well. We also see Nomad being picked quite a bit, but we haven't really felt the impact of Nomad much as well. Of course, she did get a nerf considering the air jabs now have an indicator letting you know that there's one around, but there's still the issue of you can put Nomad air jabs in places where you literally can't shoot it unless you peek far enough.
Unless you activate it.
Yeah, and so we haven't had any of those activations. And we haven't seen someone basically be forced to back off of an angle because they can't push into a Nomad trap. So I think we're not seeing Nomad used to the best potential in this match either.
I think she's a weird operator in that in order for her success to come about, it's in large part the enemy team. It's up to the enemy team to activate. It's very weird where. It's pretty much not up to the Nomad player whether or not she's effective given round to round. It's pretty much up to the enemy team and if they choose to push into it.
Well, that's true, but I mean, I just haven't seen much of an example of like her cutting off a rotation and a defender not being able to use that rotation because there's an air jab there.
However, game to game, you could argue that simply just having a Nomad on your team is enough to make the impact just then and there. Nomad, in and of herself, discourages defenders to just rush in and retake quickly. There's a large combing you have to do. Now it's less so because you can hear. Before it was an absolute nightmare. But at the same time, just even having a Nomad on the other team, you as a defender, retaking a position, think, this might just get me killed for no reason, just simply because of that very air jab. So her effectiveness is not so much on the stat sheets. However, 3 kills right off the bat, that does come on the stat sheets. And an interesting peek from Sippin in unfortunate time. Whoa! Sippin finishes it off in explosive fashion. OJ is absolutely unfair. That was as embarrassing as it gets, by the way. That whole everything.
Like 3 people peeking the same angle and just dying.
Not only that, but no one peeking the door. 3 people were peeking the same angle. One was peeking the camera on 90. The other one was peeking the 90 desk, and no one was peeking the door. And Sippa just goes, all right. And so,
Just free kills.
oh boy, this is, yeah, it's free real estate basically. 14-4 right now for Sipin. Sweater following it right up with 10-4. This is, oh boy. This was, by the way, 0-2 in favor of Ocean Creatures when it started off. 6 rounds in a row right now for Sinister.
Yeah, momentum is definitely a big deal here, and I think impacts it impacts Ocean Creatures more than it impacts Sinister, because we saw Sinister, they actually got destroyed the first 2 rounds. Like it wasn't really a close battle, but they still managed to pull their mindsets back and start winning 6 rounds in a row off of that. Meanwhile, I don't see the mindset reset for Ocean Creatures being as strong, considering that they again still haven't really changed much of what they're doing. They're playing the same sort of attacking style where they honestly just don't use utility, I want to say, because we've seen a couple of frag grenades go out, but beyond that, like, they haven't really been helping each other at all. They haven't, like, maybe a smoke grenade to cut off some angles would be fantastic, but they just decide not to bring any smoke grenades. It seems like, with the exception of Nomad, they're just kind of going for fragging power, and then you have this Thatcher, but you don't have any hard breach. So what exactly is the Thatcher doing? I guess disabling nuke jammers to allow for more droning to get in, but I also don't see too many proactive droning plays. It's just, it's a very interesting situation for the attackers, and I don't think they have enough of a plan going into Villa.
Yeah, and again, Villa, unexplored map, very hard if you don't practice it time and time again. This was not Ocean Creatures' pick for the map, and I can imagine next time Ocean Creatures see a map ban, they're going to immediately ban Villa just for the sake of their sanity. But we are seeing a rush right into Library, but oh my goodness, what a shutout. The Librarians came to play. People were yelling, gunfights, not here, not in my library. Sinister finish out that round in perfect fashion. That was Smurfin and OJ just slaughtering all of the poor Ocean Creatures. Map 1 is done. We then move to Border, which was Ocean Creatures map, and I got to imagine that is so much more a comfort pick. I think I said OJ and Smurfin. Was it Smurfin and Anthony? Regardless, Border is so much more comfortable for any team than Villa is. So I got to imagine that we might see that as a bit more competitive, and we will be hopping right into it. They're not like super immediately, chill out. But as soon as we can start it, we're going to look to start it. Wow. What a game that was. 0-2. I mean, we talked about it. We thought, Ocean Creatures, okay, they came to play kind of deal. And all of a sudden, it could not have looked more opposite. That was just utter domination since the third round for Sinister. Wow.
Yeah, things just seem to unravel on the side of Ocean Creatures, and Sinister, like, they definitely stepped up, and again, not only from their individual play, but their teamwork got a lot better as well. They're covering for each other. During their attacking rounds, they started droning out for each other and setting up crossfires. I always say this, and I feel like I might be saying it too much. But it's a situation where the more angles you hold as an attacker, the better it is, as long as the only exception is when you have an angle which is very easy to be flanked and you don't have someone watching that flank. But for the most part, you just stack 2 people up on that angle and there's still more than enough space for the rest of your team to cover other locations. But the best way to attack is essentially encircling the site and making sure that if a defender peeks out of one area, someone else will be able to take him out. And we started seeing that from Sinister. We almost never saw that from Ocean Creatures, unfortunately, especially, again, in a lot of their attacks, they just started pushing everyone in the same sort of direction. And then the last round, they just went full rush and unfortunately didn't even get a kill on their side during it.
Nope. That was an absolute shutout. That was as comical. That was pretty much just, filing one at a time for the ride on like Satan's death coaster. That was just asking for it basically at that point. And yeah, meat grinder is a good word for it, I think. I'm excited to see what Border does simply because and I mentioned before, as far as Villa's concerned, it's just Villa in general. So many teams ban it because so many teams don't know what to do with it. It's this huge mess of a map. And to make sense of it, you need to invest so much time. And so many teams prefer to spend their time elsewhere on maps where they can refine the micro things. You know, simply where players are standing, exactly where the gadget will be deployed. Villa, it's not so much we understand the map, we're now going to try to execute a site. It's we have to figure out the map first and then figure out what we want to do with the sites. So, I, for seasons to come, in my opinion, unless it gets changed or the basement's eliminated entirely, I'm not sure. But unless Villa sees change, I think for seasons to come, that will still be one of the most banned and unplayed maps there is in Siege. Just simply because of how huge it is.
Yeah, it's also interesting that I can definitely see that as well because it's already being banned a lot and it'll continue to be banned, but it'll be banned as a map that is a pretty well designed map, honestly. Like there's it's not like a what was it? It's not like Tower where like it's just a map that everyone would ban because it's not very good. But so yeah, that's an interesting situation.
Yes.
Turning our heads to Border a little bit,
Hmm.
I part of me wants to see a Nomad ban because Border has a lot of situations where there's only one place the defenders can rotate. And so cutting off that entire rotation with a single air jab can be ridiculously strong. On the other hand, we haven't really been seeing either of these teams really put good use or get good use out of Nomad. Uh, and even when we spectate Nomad, sometimes we saw maybe a couple of air jabs go out, but she usually dies before getting at least two of them out.
Right. Yeah. So Border has now pretty much just become a a battle for white tile. And by that I mean every single round of Border can be played starting off attacking Armory, double Armory, where there's white tile up to bunker and into the rest of site. Everyone defends Armory, whether you're going customs, whether you're going Armory itself, whether you're going to blanking.
Bathroom tellers.
Thank you, bathroom tellers and ventilation. Everyone always puts some sort of defense in Armory, and a lot of it comes down to that. I mean, Armory itself, pretty obvious. Get control of up to bunker, that first section where the white tile is, and you pretty much are set up to plant because defenders can't wide peek around you. You have the angles available. Attacking into vent. The only thing you need to control is that white tile Armory section because that's the only place where the defenders can rotate to stop the plant. And going even into bathroom tellers and customs, it's Armory, 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 Armory. And as the time has continued, it's been exactly that. And I think a large reason why that is because Border is not that big of a map. And defenders, I mean, you obviously want to defend the best place possible. And the best place? Armory. So that's where we see so many of these fights take place. And I fully predict most of this map to take place.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially since even playing vertically for the other sites like bathroom tellers and like customs, you the immediate vertical play takes place in CCTV for customs and in offices for bathroom tellers. But if you don't have control over Armory, then
Yeah.
the defenders have a really easy rotation to either of those locations, and they can very easily flank you from them too. So definitely makes sense that teams would put a lot of emphasis on Armory. And on top of that, being a defender in CCTV is very difficult. You
Yeah.
basically have a chance to get one frag, but if the attackers are on point, that's all you're going to get. You're going to get flushed out almost immediately because there are just so many angles that the attackers can come at you from. And so, directing our attentions to the bans, we have a Jackal ban and a Nomad ban. So some of those rotations are going to be a little safer for the defense.
I mean, you talked about it. Credit to you, Nomad. Could see a lot of play here. She's especially effective on border because as you get control of Armory, and as you mentioned, CCTV is pretty much, you're not going to have, unless it's specific CCTV defense, you're not going to have one or two roamers in CC. You basically drone it out, it's yours for attackers. And Office will see a bigger emphasis, but my point is, if you lose control of Armory, you basically lose control of the second floor. And to retake, there's only 2 staircases. So if you can shut those out with an air jab, that's exactly why we see Nomad being banned here. There's not 5 different ways to get upstairs. There's 2, and she just shuts them down immediately.
We've also seen
and the Maestro Mira just makes sense.
Yeah. And we've also seen some Nomad plays where if someone, even if the defensive location is Armory, if you have someone on the attack watching the air conditioning run out, then Nomad can rappel up the window between lockers and just basically shut that entire rotation down. And so if you have, say, a Thermite and he opens up the Armory wall, and you have control over that rotation with an air jab and a Nomad, then it's so ridiculously hard for the defenders to come back from that. So I can definitely understand a Nomad ban here. But of course, Armory will be the first defensive site. It is ridiculously rare that a team goes to somewhere else first. It is a little bit more common after the change to make it so that both teams play 6 rounds on defense. Because when you're playing 5 rounds on defense, assuming you win all of your defensive rounds, you can only double up on the first 2 sites that you played. The third site, you could not double up on, or you could not double up on if you win. So if you go for one of the odd sites first, then your second and third site are going to be your like more standard site, which means the third site, if you win it, it'll be locked out for the rest of your defense. So the fact that we have 6 rounds on defense now means that you can get 2 full rotations, and it sort of prevents that sort of deal. I think that's part of the reason why pretty much every league switched to 6 rounds on defense.
Yeah, and I've seen the idea of floating quarters. Have you seen this? Where teams play 3 rounds, switch, 3 rounds, switch, 3 rounds, switch. Yeah, you know, a conversation for another time. I want to talk about the Mira ban real quick. Obviously, she's a default ban for most Siege players, especially older Siege players, because after Mira was introduced, Siege became, it took a hike in as far as tactical gameplay, because she opens the door for so many defensive strategies that just would never have existed without her. For instance, as you talked about, CCTV defense is it's called the Mira setup. When you have Mira and you can play inside a CCTV looking into Office. So to see her being banned, not only are Jackal and Mira default bans for Sinister, but they also make just a ton of sense because so many people just don't feel like dealing with it. Sippin' will open things up with the kill onto Stunna, and that is the buck off the board. Those are frag grenades to displace anyone inside that bunker. So that's one hell of a pick if you're going to have to kill anyone that early. Breezy taking a little bit of damage, but he's just on flank duty for now. His job is done, so he'll continue to duke things out. A lot of information provided right now by that bulletproof camera, but Fish just tears right on through. And he'll take out Sue, Sweater, and Rudy, continuing their success of last round, and this is looking more and more like Sinister are just rolling. Sippin' has just, I want what he's having. That's it. I want to know if it's pulp or no pulp, okay? I need this Sippin, because I do not play like this ever, and he has been playing like this for, now it would be, what is it, 8 rounds in a row. Sippin has just fragged out.
Oh yeah, he's on a tear, and Sweater too, honestly. This round, Sweater got the refrag, he didn't end up dying, so we didn't get to see too much. I think maybe Sippin stole some kills from Sweater, who knows, but overall, yeah,
renowned kill stealer.
Both of these two have been showing up all across the board, and especially on this defense, again, Armory probably the most viable one, because it's the bomb site that's in the place that you want to defend the most. So you can't really fault attackers for losing it, but losing it in the fashion that they did. Again, we only saw, I think, Fish get 2 picks that round. Otherwise, it was just Sinister all the way. And so that's not really the kind of situation you want to be in. You want your team, again, to refrag more. You want to get more of your utility down. I think the only thing they really accomplished that round in terms of map control and utility was getting the Armory wall open. And while that's a really good start, you do have to have some sort of plan afterward as well, and losing your frag grenades that can potentially contest the half wall is definitely not a good start. Of course, there was a Jaeger and ADSs behind the half wall, but you also have a Thatcher to take those out as well.
Well, you put it. It's a start, and they never. That's it. They're like the guy on Candyland who rolls like and then it says go back 8 spaces. It was fine to begin, but in the end, you got nowhere with it. If you are Stunna that round, you have to be attacking vent first to displace that person in bunker. You can't just let someone sit behind half wall and just terrorize your team. That's not, as the commercial goes, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. You are playing Buck. You're not playing Sledge. Go underneath, displace the defenders, give your team some breathing room when attacking an army. Regardless, we are 30 seconds into the next round, and honestly, with the way things are going, I fully predict Sinister to absolutely rip through Ocean Creatures. And I love to be proven wrong, but 8 rounds in a row is quite the telltale story so far.
It absolutely is. And 8 rounds in dominating fashion, with players like Sweater and Sippin having the confidence to just rush around, take any fight they want, and get a headshot out of it. It has been very, very strong, and they're riding on that momentum quite a bit. So let's head toward this defense a little bit. We have a castle setup as well. Seems like there was no castle barricade on that door leading to vents, but Rudy and Smurfin will get the first 2 picks of the round. Rudy gets refragged, so Wrath actually takes that under his belt, but that still leaves us with a 4v3 in favor of the defenders, and Smurfin getting ready to nitrocell anyone who walks in and tries to plant. They do know he's here, and they're going to try to flush him out. I don't know if the defenders know where the diffuser is, but it is now back in the hands of the attackers. Tyler getting shot from above. He doesn't seem to mind too much, though. Sweater gets Stunna. Wrath still looking for some sort of frag. He's the only one left on his team. He gets the nice headshot onto Smurfin, so that is a trade, but it will not be enough quite yet. Still has a mountain to climb as 3 members of the team are coming at him. Impact grenade will expose him and force him to run out, but the frag is not confirmed quite yet. It is now as Sippin pulls out the pistol and gets a headshot onto Wrath. This is just Sinister shutting down Ocean Creatures.
I think this is mostly just Sinister. Maybe they're on like season 7 of Game of Thrones. They gotta like catch up before the next episode, and they just want as much time as humanly possible, because there are so few explanations to where Ocean Creatures, and again, we talked about that lineup is very, very good. All of those players, Stunna, Fish, Tyler, Wrath, Breezy, terrific players. To see this lineup get almost humiliated as it is currently, it's both shocking, but also just
it is hard to find the proper words to talk about what's going on here, especially since, again, Ocean Creatures, they've had some decent showings so far in CCS as well, with some of their victories, but they just haven't managed to make anything off of it at this point. And well, it is a very tough situation, and frankly a mountain to climb for them, as Sinister, again, still have so much momentum under their belts. They're heading to Bathroom Tellers as their 3rd site. I know some teams have been starting to prefer Customs as their 3rd site, but this one is still perfectly viable.
Well, so I wanted to touch on that, where the Customs versus Bathroom Tellers, the coveted 3rd site, what do you choose? I've seen Bathroom Tellers picked more and more because of what you mentioned before. CCTV is so difficult to hold, and in order for a successful Customs defense, vertically, you're looking at controlling CCTV. And that, with how difficult that is, teams rather control Office, Archives, and Armory than the south side or southwest side of the map in CCTV for that very reason. It's just so difficult to control vertically.
Piggybacking off of that, I want to mention to anyone who doesn't know, Castle is a very strong operator in very specific situations, in very specific setups. The bathroom teller setup is absolutely one of them, because the way Castle works is that you basically get to create a room where you're saying to the attackers, you have to use some big portion of utility and Sippin. Wrath just doesn't see him on the stairs. No droning whatsoever, and honestly a free kill for Sippin. So that is unfortunate for them, but they will actually get this drone out. Not quite getting the wallbang, however, as Stunna just barely dances around his head.
Well, Sippin has now been executed. I'm not sure how he wasn't hit by Stunna. It was basically a body outline for him. But obviously, this clear focus, and for some reason, though they haven't attacked Office whatsoever, there is no vertical play for the default plant spot, and this could prove advantageous for the members of Ocean Creatures, but Rudy hops right on out and shuts down Fish, so vertical control is all but lost. And speaking of loss, you have just lost 3 of your best friends. PTSD is bound to kick in soon. 3 guns left to go through. This is going to be a tough uphill battle for the support. Yeah. Despite how that round was maybe seemingly looking for a moment, that ended with 4 members of Sinister still alive. So I don't, this is just,
yeah, Ocean Creatures started contesting angles and started pushing in before they had the rest of their teammates set up. Like we saw out on the balcony, there was a run out, I think, by Rudy, and Breezy was almost in position to refrag that, or even get the frag before the run out was successful, but he wasn't peeking the angle yet. And even still, Ocean Creatures pulled the trigger before that angle was held, and so Breezy got there just a little bit too late and wasn't able to pick up the kill off of the back of that. Going back to the point I was mentioning before about how holding... so Manpants mentioned that holding archives and offices for most teams is easier than holding CCTV. And part of that is actually because of the castle. You can easily play castle on both sites, but you can lock down much more of the of offices with castle than you can CCTV. CCTV, if you use all of your castle barricades, there is still one window that is completely uncastle barricaded, or one door, whichever you decide to use it as. Whereas in offices, you have a lot more space to work with. You can cover your back more with reinforcements instead of castle barricades, and it allows you to basically have more site to work with. And that allows teams to basically play this half of the map upstairs better than they would be able to CCTV.
So this run out from Sinister has intrigued me this entire time. They have a run out set up for offices for the spawn peak, but you saw before, it was very successful in dispatching the Habana. And I'm just, between Wraths just jumping over East Stairs and the Habana just pretty much walking into that, I'm just shocked at the lack of drone work from Ocean Creatures. There is just seemingly a large lack of information, and oh, that is just bad. I'm gonna call that lack of information. Well, that was lack of information, but also really bad timing on Stunna's end, and that's your hard breacher and you're attacking Armory. That's how this is going to go, and this is just going to be so rough.
We've seen Sweater attempt those sorts of late peaks really often, and I'm sort of wondering if he has some of these timed out, or if there's people on his team calling him out, because they do have a lot of default cams outside. Wrath will finally shut down Sweater, however, and that is actually a good breath of life for Ocean Creatures, as they might be able to make something off of it, but Sippin is still the other one on the board. Wrath takes him out too. He is the God Killer in this round, and it seems like we are finally in a position where Ocean Creatures might have a chance. The 2 top fraggers off the board, it is still a 3v2, and they're still attacking Armory without a Thermite, So it's going to be an uphill battle, but they could potentially do this. The Zofia impact grenades will take out the deployable shield and help flush out the defenders a little bit more. But we still have a minute and 15 seconds left on the clock, so they can feel free to rotate around almost as much as they like at this point.
Yeah, it's just such an odd lack of information from ocean creatures. I have to wonder what happened to Rudy? Rudy fell all the way through the hatch from his position and got knocked. Shout out to Rudy for making this as even as humanly possible. But there's just there's so little information right now for ocean creatures. Their pre-drone work needs to improve. Their drone work period needs to improve because it is not coming to fruition. And you're seeing it. You're seeing angles peaked. You're seeing them trying to find where, and it's just so bizarre to watch because this is a good team. These players know what they're doing, and this is playoffs. So this isn't just, a run-of-the-mill, we're spectating silver, and we just want to check it out and have some fun. This is like high competitive play, and these players don't seem to know that either they have two drones or what prep phase droning is like. And Fish was as close to the meme of like the I'm in danger meme, where it's like, haha, I'm in danger. When he walked up metal, he was getting shocked and he was looking every single way possible. Like, how do you not have some semblance of idea as to where you're trying to? I mean, granted, he was going for the person in 90, the person 90 was dispatched, but after that, it was nothing but panic. This is just bizarre to watch. And so very rarely, we talked about it, 3 rounds in a row for defense is hard to come by because of that third site. But if you win that and you're 3-0, then you just go back to your first site. So it only gets worse. And we're about to see Vent, which was also a slaughter. So
this is certainly looking to be a 5-1.5, potentially even a 6-0.5, depending on whether or not Ocean Creatures can start working as a team more than anything else. I'm even seeing some questionable choices in terms of roles on Ocean Creatures. You have Wrath playing Thermite. Thermite, support character through and through. Even though he's got a fantastic weapon, it's still an operator where if you don't get your Thermite charges down, you have not done your job. So generally, and I say this a bunch, but generally support players on Thermite and all that, they won't have very high kill amounts because they're the players who are never supposed to peak aggressively. You're supposed to play safe, save your life until you get your Thermite charges down, and then afterwards do whatever you want. Usually they also have the diffuser too, so you also have to plant after you get your Thermite charges down. But yeah, after that you can do whatever you want, but before that you need to stay alive, so you can't go and peek all of these angles. Yet Wrath is one of the people who have the most kills on the side of Ocean Creatures, and he's been playing the hard breach, that support role, this entire time.
And I want to point out, I talked about specific because it's bothering the heck out of me, the lack of information for Ocean Creatures. They had 3 of their 5 drones shot out in prep phase, and pretty lackadaisical too. 2 of them were just driving through the site. Just, don't mind me, please don't shoot me. You can't do that. Save your drones, people. Hashtag save the drones. Hashtag STD.
Especially before you even get near the site, like in prep phase, the site is actually probably the least important place for you to drone out, because you have more drones that once you get map control adjacent to the site, then you can toss out those drones and use them to drone out the site. But your first drones, you want to make sure that you have places that you know that you can get into the building without dying. You want to make sure that you can drone out some of the roamers, know where the roamers are playing. Yeah, he has a teammate up.
Sorry,
I didn't pause because of you. I'm just like, I don't know.
I'm audibly angry now. This is just, I mean, yes, you're refrag central. Good, you're clumped, you're working as a unit, awesome. And you talked about it. Unsurprisingly, the 2 supports are up. The 2 people with the only drones not shot out in prep phase. And also the 2 best performers so far right now for Ocean Creatures, and they're pretty much a bat out of hell right now, because when you bring double Heart Breacher to any round, any site ever, you sacrifice frag ability. You're sacrificing a Zofia, an Ash, a Sledge. There's a lot of frag power you're giving up to bring these operators. And to have them be the last ones left is risky, to say the least. However, Wrath's continuing to carry the dead weight so far, and he'll dispatch another, but Sweater, good positioning, will dispatch Breezy, and now it's just up to Wrath. He has an idea of where Anthony is, but Sweater with the good rotation will finish him off. A little bit of victory squats for him. 5-0 right now for Sinister, and this is... this might just be the case that Sinister are the Siege equivalent of an oil rig exploding in the ocean.
You might have
it
to
kills
explain
ocean creatures.
There, okay, got it. Man, I feel dumb after that one. But going back into the game, if there's any round that Ocean Creatures can win, it is probably going to be this one, in terms of their attack anyway. Because again, we have the off site. We have the third site, which on most maps, with the exception of like we mentioned, Villa potentially being one of them, and the other one, Coastline. Most of the sites in Coastline are very viable, and there's no like, oh, you're on the third site now, you're destined to lose. But we saw that Sinister played very well on their last Bathroom Teller site, and they're playing it pretty standard too. They have the castle, they're locking down the portions of the site that they need, and that's something that I've actually been noticing about teams like Sinister and Altus Police Department, is that you have these huge fraggers. People like Sweater, people like Sippin' on OJ, Bolo. You have these fraggers, and for the longest time, these teams have been like aim city, and they haven't really been focused too much on their strats and everything. But recently, we've seen these teams start to put more focus into their strategies, and they absolutely know all of the defaults, and they're starting to branch out and make some of their own defenses as well, and being more creative with it too, which is exactly what I like to see. And it just seems like Ocean Creatures aren't quite at that stage yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you would need to see almost the biggest 180 in Siege history for this to be at even a little bit feasible for Ocean Creatures. Not only do they have to play another round of attack, which they've proven they are completely incapable of, you also then have to play 6 rounds of defense, assuming you win this one. So it's just so, I don't know. It's not disappointing, but shocking. By all means, shocking. We see Tyler here with the shotgun. Not exactly sure what he's trying to accomplish, besides just, throwing this out to the memers. But it's...
Of any shotgun to have, that's the one you want. And Rudy picks up 2 of a Wrath, finally trades it out with 2 of his own, and Tyler gets a headshot onto Sippin with a pistol. This round seems like it's, so the defensive setup was pretty standard. But beyond that, everyone is just sort of playing in random locations. Fights are happening in random locations. Everyone is peeking. The site is getting cleared out right now. Both of the defenders have not rotated back down to the site. Will we see a frag up through the floor? Tyler is trying as best he can, but he just can't find the frag, and he eventually actually doesn't even manage to get it. Anthony,
what the heck
with his
is
own
going
shotgun,
on?
kills him, and Tyler manages to kill Sweater, but Anthony is still upstairs, and he does not have a lot of health. So if there's any round that Ocean Creatures can win, it is potentially this one. You have 1 minute and 15 seconds left to work with. Tyler does not have to be aggressive with the plant right now, but he is still going for it anyway. He's sticking it. I don't think that's a good idea on his part, but it will end up working out. I don't know what this match is.
This is very much a case of Sinister has hurt itself in confusion, and this whole round has just been so weird. And Game of Thrones fan theory. Do you think Wrath hates his teammates? Because every time, like Tyler's here. Well, he's actually did pretty well this round, but he's memeing here with the shotgun. And Wrath comes in and refrags two. He gets a double kill. He's like, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised to see Wrath just. Oh, I guess it's over now. But I was about to say I wouldn't be surprised to see Wrath just pick like Ash or something. It's like, you know what? You guys play support because you clearly don't care.
Look at me. I'm the fragger
yeah.
now.
I mean, Raz is again the only one who seemingly has, we call it 200 IQ. Raz right now is operating on full brain cells, but it's tough to watch the rest of his teammates just kind of meme and throw their lives away.
Yeah, again, the fact that the Thermite player has the most kills on his team, sitting at 8, is already a little bit telling in itself, because again, he's a support player. His job is to not peek until he gets his utility down. He's supposed to stay alive. But granted, a lot of those kills that he got were refrags, and refrags are something that support players can be relied upon to do. But a lot of his frags were also not refrags. A lot of them were simply the rest of his team died around him, and then 30 seconds later, he gets his solo frags. He gets a couple of headshots, so he's peeking angles on his own. And so again, it's a very confusing time. And as we switch sides to see how Sinister decide to attack and how Ocean Creatures decide to defend, it seems to me like Sinister want this to end really quickly, because they have Capitao for smoke grenades, and they have a Ying to just storm the beaches.
Yeah, and like I said, that white tile you see on the right side of your screen, that's pretty much what it takes for Armory control. Unless you have the reinforcement on the left side like they do, and Breezy plays in that position. Because other than that, uprooting the person inside a small office is not difficult. Furthermore, as defenders, you need to play so wide because you can't really play as close as Tyler is once they start storming into Armory. Regardless, though, the round begins, and yeah, you said it. I mean, it looks to be, at least for the time being, that Sinister are really bringing and throwing the kitchen sink right at Ocean Creatures.
And I'm honestly really surprised that Ocean Creatures basically never took a single smoke grenade on any of their attacks. You'd think that... I think teams tend to put too much emphasis on using smoke grenades only for smoke plants, but you can actually use it to cut off lines of sight and get yourself more map control. It doesn't have to be smoke out an angle and then plant because of that angle. There's so much, especially when on a map like Border, where so much hinges on getting Armory, you can smoke off offices, you can smoke off the stairwell. There are so many places where you can use the smoke grenade and let your team push in and gain map control off of that. You can cut off rotations, you can cut off lines of sight. It's very interesting that we just haven't seen any more smokes until now. But Wrath does get the first pick onto Sippin, and again, this guy is the one dragging his team to any round victories that they might have. And this time he's on Valkyrie, which is a headshot machine of an operator, so we'll potentially be seeing him get more of those as Sweater gets a kill onto Tyler. Office wall has been opened, and that is a good start for Sinister.
Right. I mean, that's better than a good start. I mean, you could start to execute now based off that. We saw, or heard at least, a couple of fire bolts already used by Rudy, but the smoke's still available. However, with the Ying off the board, you lose a lot of the pressure you have going for that plant. So you'll need to win a lot of gunfights, and that's not exactly doing the job right there. It'll be Fish to dispatch the smoke. I mean, smurfing it on the smoke. And yeah, so we see the execute start to come underway, but defenders are still well in position. Rudy, though, Rudy and Sweater on the coverage, doing so well to make sure this plant gets down. It's effectively a 2v2 for another second. And there you go. Rudy will take out Valk, and you have a 3v1 with the plant down. Stunna opens things up well with the way you want it. And now these two defenders, you could argue, are in the same angle. So decently easy for Stunna if he can manage to get a flit. He makes one, grabs one, and again, all he has to do is look the same exact way. A run out might be in the works here, as he'll need to relieve the Zofia of her position. Sweater is just sitting tight for the time being. Pros fake. Stunner will just go to stick it, and it will have to force Sweater's hand. Sweater, time and time again, if his team needs it, not necessarily when the team is rolling. When the team is rolling, we'll see a lot. Sippin is really the catalyst of that. But when his team needs an opening, just make things happen, Sweater is there. So going back to the last map, they were down 0-2. Sweater opens up with like 5 kills in the next 2 rounds. He just shreds through them, and then team rolls from there. Here, they lost the last round, and Sweater gets the opening kill and the final kill. He gets 3 kills in total for the last round just to end it. Sweater is so good at turning it up when his team needs it, and that's not to be undervalued. The clutch factor of a player like Sweater is just insane.
I also want to commend Sinister's execute there as well. They got open, all of the walls they needed to get open, and then they played those walls. So we saw that Anthony didn't get too cocky. He didn't get too overconfident. He didn't rush things. He went the long way around. He waited until Rudy was ready inside of offices, watching the angle through the reinforced wall that had been blown up, and he was watching anyone who was going to try to push up from A site. Then we saw Sweater. He was set up on the window on AC, and he was holding an angle, and he was covering the plant. So as soon as Anthony rushed into site and started getting the plant down, he was sure that he was completely safe because there were 2 people from different angles. Can't stress enough how important it is that they were watching from different angles and cutting off any rotations from someone who could try to stop him. That's something that pretty much every team should know. It's not something that's very, it's not super advanced. It's not this crazy strategy that they're pulling out of nowhere. But when we see a team like Ocean Creatures just sort of rush things and they're trying to peek things, it's a refreshing sight to see that a team is willing to just play patient, hold back, set up the angles, and then get the plant down with the map control that they have.
Absolutely. And the beauty of what they did in oh, okay, that was a Valkyrie camera. I thought that was the C4 initially. I was like, where did it go?
The hardest C4 yeet in history.
I was about to say, what an arm. But it's not to be underestimated. They had a lot of things going against them for that plant. And how perfect that execute was not to be underestimated. And it was because of the map control you talked about. They had exactly what they needed, and the execution was flawless. Going into this, though, we have a 4v4 with 2 minutes left, and this is quite literally everything on the line for Ocean Creatures. They need to string 5 rounds in a row to even send this to overtime and then win another map. So they need to pull some absolute miracles and perhaps just become different players entirely, because the way they have been playing, at least against Sinister, has not been up to par and not what you need. Fish, though, he'll pick up another kill, so it's 2 rounds back to back. Fish is still putting in work. He was doing well initially for Ocean Creatures on Villa, but started to fall off at the end. And now we're seeing sort of a late resurgence from him, and as I say that, he has put on his back and he is dead. So the narrative is dead, and so are my hopes and dreams of this potentially going to overtime. However, 3v3, I'm a pessimist.
It's a
I
very
don't see it happening.
familiar situation as well, as Rudy, Anthony, and Sweater are the 3 left alive. Anthony picks up 1. Now we're down to a 3v2, even more familiar, and we're probably going to start seeing angles get set up. Never mind, Rudy just decides to take things into his own hands and get the kill. Anthony finds the headshot on a Breezy, and that means that Sinister is going to knock Ocean Creatures out of playoffs in the semifinals. Ocean Creatures had a good run during the regular season, but just couldn't seem to find their footing in playoffs. Meanwhile, Sinister, they've been on a tear for the past couple of weeks of the season, and they're bringing it to playoffs.
Not that I should admit it, but I'm going to.